Good morning, Joe. Great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good morning. Glad to be with you.
And thanks for your condolences on the Canadians' loss. I appreciate that.
You bet. Stanley
So,
Cup fever. What can I say?
yes, now we can both watch the LA Kings take it, hopefully.
Yes, you bet.
All
You bet.
right. So let's get started. We're doing a leadership series here. If you could just tell everybody, again, briefly, who you are, what you do, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. I'm an author and a former Business Week columnist, and I've really spent the past 16 years of my career looking at the executive staffing function within companies and management succession. And that was the subject of my book called Deciding Who Leads. And really, my consulting practice today is focused on helping companies understand the influences on executive staffing and executive search and management succession so they can really properly align internal and external process to get the business results they need.
Yeah, and I read your book. It's really well done. So congrats on that.
And thanks.
Um, with that said, you obviously have talked a lot about leadership, I'm sure, to a lot of people. What's your perspective or definition of leadership?
A great question. I mean, I think if you pick up the newspaper any day, it's the subject of all sorts of news articles. We find every day examples, Mark, of corporate leadership gone bad or failures of leadership. They could either be tied to an individual, or in some cases, they could be systemic in nature. But unfortunately, all of the misfires related to leadership and the performance of executive leaders finds its way into the media, finds its way to water cooler talk, and nowadays any person on the street in any walk of life could be lamenting, and often are, the escalation of executive salaries, or the fact that this company or that company's brand or their customer service or what have you has now been impacted by a change at the top or by a leadership crisis. And so we find ourselves talking more and more in our own personal and professional circles, and also on social media, about the failings of executives. And so I think really the topic of leadership really requires more and more look at.
Don't you find that there are different types of leaders, and the key is getting the quote unquote right fit leader in the for the situation?
Yeah, sure. Right fit. Yeah, culture fit, of course, is very important. And, you have the issue of, do we want to sustain outstanding performance, or do we need a turnaround agent? Quite often, answering that question should point you in the direction of whether we need to promote somebody from within, or perhaps whether we need to bring in somebody on the outside who has the right stuff to be successful in our organization. Now, there's an assumption that's made, by the way. There's an assumption that just because an executive was successful in another environment, with another company or another industry, that we can assume that they will be successful in our organization, or that the behaviors they employed to drive success elsewhere will be the same drivers of success within our own organization. And I think that's a faulty assumption, Mark. Frankly, I think what you really need to do when you're looking at outsiders is really understand who they are as people. What decisions are they likely to make? How are they likely to inspire people and performance in your organization? And really dive down on those issues and get rid of the assumptions and the mythologies about what someone did somewhere else, or all of the percentage gains they might have had in a different environment or different organization. It's really about, who is this person that we're about to hire? Why can they have a transformative impact on our company?
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant, and kind of what I meant by right fit. Accomplishments you bring to the table are obviously of great value, but are you the right coach for those players at that time?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I mean, for me, I think one of the indicators of that fit, because coach and player is a great analogy. I think one of those screens on leadership today has to be along the lines of what's called servant leadership. I had the privilege of attending a master's degree program at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. And Gonzaga is very grounded in servant leadership. It is a concept that was created by Robert Greenleaf, who was decades ago an executive at AT&T. And today, actually, there's the Robert Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership in Indianapolis. But the whole concept around servant leadership, Mark, is that if you are appointed to a leadership position in any kind of organization, it's really not about other people serving you as the leader. It's about you serving others and bringing a service orientation, engaging with people, caring about them. Now, it's not all, if you will, lovey-dovey. It's not a soft science. It's really a look at what behaviors can we expect from someone, what motivates someone, and can someone really bring a service orientation to a desired outcome, a desired business outcome. What do we need to achieve? If people are central to achieving it, how can we instill confidence, inspiration, motivation, perspiration? How can we get those things from people? And who do they need to look for to get that? What kind of support do they need to feel? And what kind of resources are they going to need? So that leader as servant to the rest of the organization, I think, is probably the highest calling for any executive leader today.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and I totally agree. Segue from that, then, we've all had influences in our lives. Can you name an individual who's been an influencer in your career and or your life?
Well, I mean, just a few things. I referenced servant leadership. I would have never have known about the concept had I not pursued this degree and earned the degree from Gonzaga University. So I would say, actually, in that particular case, I myself went in search of, frankly, an opportunity to check the box. I had a bachelor's degree. I've been surrounded over the past 15, 16 years with people far better educated than I. I went in search of a master's degree and frankly came away with a life-changing, perspective-changing experience on leadership and on the work of executive staffing and human resources at the senior level, and really sort of a new appreciation for why things like emotional intelligence and open-mindedness are so key in terms of learning more about ourselves and more about our organizations. So I'm very grateful to a lot of the professors I had through Gonzaga. Certainly also I think, as I look back on my life, generally, so many sports coaches, Boy Scout leaders, priests, other people I came in contact with who, just provided a lot of context, a lot of teaching. Unfortunately, I can think of so many cases where I wasn't mature enough to understand the lessons they were trying to impart to me. But I think now I've gained that open-mindedness, and frankly, you can't have it without being thankful for all the things that you have.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. With respect to culture, as you mentioned before, how do you think one of these leaders develops a winning culture in whatever organization they're in, be it business, sports, or whatnot?
Well, yeah, Mark, I think that success builds its own form of success. I've learned so much about how to effectively recruit at the executive level, what the implications are for diversity within an organization, succession planning, talent management, and human resources, and how that needs to change as a function. But I would say that really, if I look at organizational life today and the calling of leaders, I think culture really is all about finding the winners and separating your organization from the people who aren't contributing to the success. What I mean is, the more I've gained an appreciation for effective hiring, I've also gained an appreciation for why selective firing is also important. Hiring and recruiting is an intensely human enterprise. Mm-hmm. You're never going to bat 1,000. You're never going to make all the right decisions about people. The challenge and the real potential damage to cultures is when organizations make a bad hiring mistake or a bad promotion decision, and then they do nothing about it. They let these individuals who are poisoning the well of organizational culture continue, and the impact they have is to drag down the morale, to sap the energy, and to create road obstacles for your high performers. So I think, Mark, developing that culture is about attracting the right people who have the same commitment to success, and frankly, getting rid of the people who don't share that commitment, who don't want to be there, who don't want to exert the same effort towards the group goal.
I think that's fantastic. I totally agree. One of the things I learned, I see with leaders is they always tell me that trust is a big factor in being a leader, and allowing transparent discussion and interaction with your people, et cetera, et cetera. Do you find, there's got to be a special quality, that person at the top has to have, because trust evolves. It doesn't just happen. That's got to be a big part of creating that winning culture, right?
Yeah, I think so. And Mark, I think your question actually, I think, goes back to what we talked about a little earlier. It's, does the leader have, that servant orientation? Does he or she have the humility, frankly, to appreciate that the way they view their organization may not be the same way that others around them view the organization and view the challenges and view the resources required to reach those new performance expectations. So I think it's that willingness to look at the organization through multiple sets of eyes. That's where the transformational leader, from my perspective, gains the insights around which they can build the strategy and then build the people and the resources. And getting back to sports, Mark, just very briefly, again, I'm beginning to appreciate that the stars on your team have a gigantic impact on the team, but the people who are weighing your team down from a cultural perspective, they have nearly almost as big an impact on your organization. And you could almost say that they cancel out the stars, leaving you with sort of everybody in the middle. So that's why, again, I think selective hiring and firing is a key to creating that organizational culture and the performance that you need from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always go back to a Mark Messier, who would look a player right in the eye and say, "We need you, we want you, but if you're not with us, then you're not with us," basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, a Messier or someone else in an organization today can't make that kind of challenge without building the right to say it, earning the right and the respect of others, to say that. You can't sit on the bench of any sport and implore people to hustle and to fight and to work and to give their all unless you've done that. Otherwise, the message is going to ring hollow. So, yeah, absolutely. It gets us back to the leader. You have to earn the right to be able to say that. Part of that is engaging with people, listening and learning, affirming that you're hearing them, but also telling them, hey, I may disagree with you. I'm not sure where I'm going to end up on this, but I appreciate your input. And, Mark, I came across a very interesting quote that really has stuck with me. They say that, and I forget where this came from, but ideally, I'll struggle to think of who said this, but the quote goes along these lines. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and beyond, no one's going to remember what we said or what we did. What they will remember is how we made them feel.
I know who said that. It was the lady that just passed away.
Was it Maya Angelou?
Exactly.
Okay, Maya Angelou, yeah.
Brilliant quote, brilliant.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, when I read that, there was an article about, the 13 best quotes from Maya Angelou, and someone who's learned a lot from these kind of inspirational leaders, I saved it, I bookmarked it, and just went through it. So that's where I got it. But, yeah, fantastic.
And I agree with you. I think it's fantastic because, as we always put it, people hire people and people join people. A company doesn't hire, and people don't really join a company, not to play semantics per se. And I think that quote is right on the money.
Yeah. There's your challenge as a leader. How do you make people feel? If they're your high performers, they ought to feel handsomely rewarded, They ought to feel motivated. They ought to feel engaged. They ought to look around the bench and say, wow, I'm a high performer, and look at these great talents around me. You don't want that person looking around the bench and saying, oh my gosh, why is he still here? Why is she still there?
Right.
I don't want to work with that person because they bring me down every time. If you're the leader, you've got to do something about that, and you have to feel the need to do something about it.
Yeah, great point. Couple of last things. How do you feel you make a difference out there?
It's a tough question, a tough challenge, Mark. I think the challenge for us. I mean, we all live in the United States. Many of us watching this are in the States here, but we're living in economies and environments where we're generally comfortable. We have shelter, we have food, we have health care, that kind of thing. But there's so many people around the world who don't have the base things that we assume they have. So, frankly, I think as we all gain in experience, gain in knowledge, I think, frankly, to the extent you've been successful, I think there needs to be some self-reflection that says, okay, if no one's going to remember what I say or what I do, how can I make people feel? How can I improve the lives of other people? So I'm being personally inspired. I can think of some examples of people who are doing work in Africa with an orphanage to build a new orphanage, to put shoes on people's feet for the first time.
Right.
I think our calling as leaders is to do good in the world. It's not enough for us to provide for our own families, provide for our own future retirements, buy the new car, whatever you want to do. It's more about really who we are as people, the impact we want to have on the world, and frankly, it draws me, and I think more and more people of a certain age, to really sort of ask ourselves, what can I do to help others? Others, frankly, who may not expect my help, but who desperately need my help.
Yeah, I agree, and it can very easily be one person at a time. So, couple last quick questions. Speaking of leaders, a leader you've admired, past or present, that, as they say, you'd love to have dinner with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I come back to Winston Churchill, Mark, just because he's left us with so many great quotes, and I've learned so much from him. But I think the environment in which he was leading, when the fate of the free world hung in the balance, if you will, and he had to stand up with the people of the United Kingdom to face down tyranny, just the courage it took. Just very inspiring.
Okay, and last, favorite sport that you have?
Yeah, sure, Mark. Well, ice hockey, Olympic hockey, National Hockey League, you name it. I play hockey. I know you do as well. To me, I played a lot of sports: football, baseball, soccer, you name it. To me, there's no better environment that epitomizes the all-in concept. The concept of we need to work as a team. All of us need to put in the same high amount of effort. In some cases, it's sort of high-risk environment, but it's all about I've got your back, you've got mine. The only way we win is to commit to each other that we're going to give our very best effort. And it's a grueling sport. It's a challenging sport. It's one I'll never perfect nor have a lot of skills in. But my view is, gee, if I can give the best effort I can, I'm going to contribute in a way that's meaningful, particularly when I look around and there's a lot of people more talented than me. So, hockey's terrific for that. And I think the people who have played that, men and women, will really appreciate that.
Yeah, I do. Favorite movie?
Probably Shawshank Redemption. Courage, long odds. Yeah.
Good choice. Favorite type of music?
Mark, I like inspiring music. I like a lot of soundtrack music. There's a musical group called Two Steps from Hell, and they produce a lot of the inspirational soundtracks that you might hear these days, even television commercials. If there's something that's going to get your adrenaline flowing, to me, it's Two Steps from Hell.
Sounds good. And last, favorite type of food?
Gee, I guess whatever's in front of me, I think is probably the answer my wife and kids would say. But yeah, Mexican's always good. Chinese, yeah, you bet. But you really sort of grab and go whatever you can get these days.
Awesome. Hey, that was fantastic. I really appreciate your time and your insights, and we will see you again soon.
Yeah, Mark, thanks. It's a pleasure, and yeah, sure we'll be talking again.
Great.